Hello, book lovers. Welcome back to another review. Thank you for tuning in. How far would you go for justice? What happens when you realize the system is designed to crush you? The Law of Lines by Pyun Hye-young. Let me show you the cover. The Law of Lines by Pyun Hye-young is a gripping psychological thriller about two women whose lives are shattered by tragedy, and their search for answers leads them into a tangled web of corruption, debt, and exploitation. This novel is haunting, unsettling, and a stark reflection of modern society. So, yes, today's book is The Law of Lines by Pyun Hye-young, translated once again by Pyun's regular translator, Sora Kim Russell. The English translation was published in 2020. The Korean novel was initially published in 2015, so already a decade old. I can't believe it. And this is the fourth or fifth review that I've reviewed on the channel so far. So I've already reviewed her psychological horror novel, The Hole, which won the 2017 Shirley Jackson Award for Horror and Suspense. That novel saw her compared to Stephen King. I also reviewed City of Ash and Red, the grotesque and disturbing story of a man navigating a city during a virus outbreak. And if you want to feel disturbed, that's a great novel to read. And that book saw reviewers comparing Pyun to Kafka and J.G. Ballard, and various other people as well. I also talked about her collection of short stories, Evening Proposal, and said that it continued her fascination with this idea that really we're all just rats trapped in a maze in a cruel, cruel world. She actually has another collection of short stories which has just been published called To the Kennels, which I haven't had a chance to read, but I'll try and get hold of that sometime soon. But anyway, that brings us to the book I'm reviewing today, The Law of Lines, which is at once quite different from those previous works, but also similar in the themes and concepts it explores. And it's steeped in alienation, urban despair, and exploitation. And of course, these are things that we can find running through Pyon's work in general. So her two previous novels had very imaginative ideas or hooks at the core of them. What's the basic story idea this time round? Is it as creative as those previous works? Have to say it's a resounding yes. So Law of Lines has an instantly engaging premise or opening or hook at the beginning, which draws you in, or it certainly drew me in. So we follow the parallel stories of two young women. These two women, they don't know each other at the outset of the story, but their lives will intersect, or they'll sort of come close to intersecting, maybe. Ki Jong is a high school teacher, suffering with stress and also dealing with a duplicitous student, manipulative student, a scheming little brat of a student. And Ki Jong's half sister dies in ambiguous circumstances, in strange circumstances. It could have been a suicide, it could have been a murder, but whatever the reason for her death, it reveals to her sister that she had been lying about her life for some time in some quite significant ways. The police, however, are uninterested in continuing to investigate whether it was a suicide or murder, or what actually happened. And so Ki Jong sets out to investigate, what really happened to her younger sister, and what sort of life had she actually been living. The other protagonist is called Seo, and Seo lives with her father. She seems to be suffering from some kind of trauma, from something that happened to her, which we're not exactly sure at the beginning of the story. But she has a deep fear of the outside world beyond their small apartment. Her father dies in a gas explosion, and the police tell her it was suicide. However, again, is that really what happened? Seoul learns that a debt collector had been harassing her father, and so she sets out to find this debt collector with the intention of taking revenge. And so we have these two investigations, and these, initially separate investigations will connect to an exploitative, corrupt business which is running a kind of pyramid scheme that's sort of hooking, sort of suckering, manipulating young people into it. However, nothing is really what it seems, and the story goes in some quite unusual directions, which you may not be expecting from the way the story begins. So this novel, like I said, this novel continues Pyun's interest, or attempts to display or sort of depict our alienation and urban despair. So how do we see these themes or these things in this novel? So what she seems to be addressing here is the way that people are forced to exploit or incentivized to exploit one another. I'm gonna sneeze. Sorry. Excuse me. So what she is sort of talking about here is that people are incentivized or sort of pushed into exploiting one another, and that really there are parts of society which are just an interconnected web of exploitation. At the center of the story is this organization that runs a vicious pyramid scheme, with each person trying to exploit those on the sort of level below them. Is that the right word? Pyramid scheme, Ponzi scheme, pyramid scheme, the sort of exploitation racket. But this scheme is sort of reflected in the wider world. This type of predatory behavior, exploitative behavior, is embedded in the world, and this sort of pyramid scheme is just a sort of concentrated example of it. In most places, we see that many of the characters are exploited, but in turn, we see that these characters are exploiting those around them as well. And Pyun describes this system of loan and debt and borrowing, and how easily people become trapped in this cycle, and that once trapped, it's almost impossible to find a way out. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Squid Game, right? The central character in Squid Game. It's been a while since I watched it, but he sort of has sort of gambling debts, is there? He's just sort of generally down on his luck. And all the other characters in that, they're all sort of chasing after money to try and escape this sort of cycle of debt, or sort of claw themselves out of some sort of financial hole that they've fallen into for whatever reason, right? And the characters here are kind of the same. So the blame can't be found in one individual, right? You can't sort of blame one person for this sort of exploitation that's happening. Even the debt collector is trapped in some ways, right? The debt collector is sort of trapped in the system just as much as the people that the debt collector is harassing to get the payments from. And instead, what Pyun seems to be saying is that the entire structure is dysfunctional, and that we live in this sort of fundamentally corrupt and uncaring world. And at one point, Seto says she was struck by how the world kept on changing, as it always had, quickly, indifferently, and with no regard for her. And it's this idea that the world doesn't care about you, and the little people will get crushed and beaten down by the relentless grind of the system. So, what are the strengths of this book, and who would I recommend it to? So, honestly, this novel has a strange blend of elements. The publicity material for the book, if you look at Amazon or something like that, it's been getting. It was described at the time as a slow burning thriller about revenge, but it's a very odd thriller. And if you went in expecting that, you might well be disappointed. Having said that, it is immensely engaging, and for the first 2/3 especially, I was genuinely gripped. Those crime novel elements, those like detective elements. These two women, they're not police officers or real detectives, but they're doing this sort of independent crime investigation. Very effective, but also Pyun uses this in a sort of destabilizing way because it doesn't go in a traditional sort of genre direction that you might expect if this was just a regular kind of crime novel. Honestly, the like towards the final third sort of reminded me of No Country for Old Men, the way the sort of structure of these characters coming together. Anyway, genuinely unsettling, very bleak portrayal of society, and this sort of predatory, financial exploitation. You can see this is in quite a lot of Korean media, like the K dramas and so on, and various other novels. Finds very interesting expression in this book. And so, anyway, so should you read Lot of Lines? Yes. If you like psychological thrillers that challenge expectations, or if you enjoy books that explore social issues like debt and economic exploitation, or if you're a fan of literary fiction with layered female protagonists, this is certainly for you. Perhaps, however, you might want to skip this if you are looking for a sort of more fast-paced traditional crime thriller, and if you want, if you want a book that has that doesn't have an ambiguous ending, you might want to skip this one. This is a work that leans toward ambiguity and sort of existential dread. But anyway, so I think from that description, you'll know if this is one that you want to pick up. So what do you think? Should thrillers focus more on the systems behind crime rather than just the crime itself? If you've read Lot of Lines or any of Pyun Hye-young's other books, I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like the video if you've enjoyed watching it. Subscribe for more book reviews, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. And as always, thanks for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.